Hello, my fellow readers. I'm Dark Symphony 777 with another fanfic. Oh wait, I just realized I'm on the wrong fanfiction. Whoops. I'm gonna leave that in. Welcome to another fanfiction review. It is I, Dark Symphony 777, with The Adventures of Two Greek Ladies by Phineas Redux. As always, link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts on the story, and finally, some my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, this story, I'm going to be quite honest, because I want to get this out of the way before I actually do the review. This story weirdly did not click with me. I don't know why this story didn't click with me, because if you look at this story objectively, it's a exceptionally well done story, from the execution to the characters to the pacing to the story. Everything is really, really good. I just, for some reason, I don't know why. I just didn't like it for some reason. It's such a weird thing to think about, to be honest. I don't know why. But let's actually just get into the review. So, what is the plot of the story about? Well, in order to actually understand the main plot, you need to understand a certain specific detail that's actually explained in Chapter 2. So we'll just go to Chapter 2 right here. There's an explanatory note. Let me read it. If readers are wondering what is happening in the story, the basic plot is that Xena, warrior princess, and Gabrielle, these two lovely ladies right here, have been sent undercover, very poorly I might add, into the future, somehow, by Ares, god of war. Their mission is to stop Queen Victoria of England from being assassinated. Ares himself is restricted by higher powers for making all but the most fleeting appearances on the scene. In total, Ares only shows up like 3 times, not this entire story, so that's how fleeting it is. Ares implies that if they fail, the repercussions in the following 20th century will be catastrophic. But we can easily imagine that Victoria's murder might as well have an impact on later events, say around 1939 to 1945. Wait a minute. wait. So you're telling me that there is something that's going to happen, that if Queen Victoria gets killed, the Nazis win? Huh? I'm sorry. What? Huh? I read this the first time earlier this week, and I was so confused. Like, okay, first off, how does Queen Victoria's death correlate to the Nazis winning? Second off, how does Ares know that killing Queen Victoria will cause the Nazis to win? Third off, why would he send Xena and Gabriel thousands of years? Because Xena takes place in ancient Greek times, so that's thousands of years ago, and he sends them to the late 19th century to stop the assassination of Queen Victoria, despite the fact Ares is the god of war. The god of war. You know, the guy is like, I want to see combat and nothing but combat. And he's like, oh, Nazis, nah, fuck them. It's just so random. It's just, I can't take this seriously, because there's no, granted, there's no explanation outside of this little note on why Xena and Gabriel, there's no hints towards anything. They're just there, and it's we have to save Queen Victoria. That's it. There's no build up. There's no resolution besides at the very end. It's just you're not even gonna try to explain it. At least explain how Ares knows this is gonna happen. Because he ain't Hades. He doesn't have the fates. The three witches we know everything. It doesn't Unless he like randomly went up to Hades, like, hey, Hades, can you see the future? It's like, why? I need you to check something. Around early 1900s, around 1939. Can you do that? Why do you want to specifically look there? Like, no reason. It's just it's so hyper specific. Okay, let's get back to this. It seems that Ares, faced with a monstrous evil beyond even his capacity to accept, Nazis winning World War II. I'm pretty sure just World War II happening is like, that's good enough for me. I don't care who wins. Because he's, again, God of War. It's like, oh, you're telling me if the Nazis win, they'll probably win the war right after? Yeah, let's do that. he would definitely, if we're talking like Greek Ares, because honestly, if you know your Greek mythology, all the gods are jackasses. They're all horrible people, except for Hades, hilariously enough. Is exerting his powers to try and stop this from taking place by dealing with the primary cause. In this particular future world, which may or may not have some relation to our own, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson actually exist. That is just a random ass thing. I don't know. Like, it's a good detail of the author providing this context, but I think it would have been better just not to have this more personal thing, because this just gives you more questions than answers. Like, I don't know. Like, it's such a weird thing. So okay, now that we got that out of the way, what is the actual plot about? Well, the plot is about Sherlock Holmes, famous fictional character, and Dr. John Watson. They're just kind of bored out of their minds when all of a sudden they run into Zebra and Gabriel, who are basically there on behalf of the Greek government, quote unquote, to tell them that Colonel Moran, who is the second in command of Professor Moriarty. At this point in time, Moriarty was killed. I believe this takes place after the retcon death, because if you actually know the history of Sherlock Holmes was actually supposed to die in one of the books at the end of one of the stories. I can't remember what it was called, and him and Moriarty and Holmes were supposed to take each other out. However, a lot of people did not like that, and so the author was forced to retcon and continue on the stories by bringing back Sherlock Holmes. And he was like very bitter about it. It's like there's a hint of bitterness in those stories, but he kind of gets better, and they get like a proper conclusion. Stuff happens. Xena and Gabriel, they told him that Moran is having a massive plan to kind of kill Queen Victoria. All right, that's just a very typical thing. So all four have to work together, or should I say all three? Because a thing about the story is Sherlock Holmes is like barely in the story, despite this being a Sherlock Holmes Xena crossover. Despite the fact the story says this is not a crossover, it's a crossover. Uh, Sherlock is like barely in the story. This is mainly centered around Watson, Xena, and Gabriel, which is fine. If you know your Sherlock Holmes backstory, specifically in framing devices, this takes place more after the original stories by Conan Doyle, which means the stories take place from the perspective of Watson, so he's always the focus character, and everyone kind of just has to bounce off him. It's fine. I really like that idea of, paying homage to the original stories. And this story is very, very technical from a plot, like not only from a plot standpoint, but from a character standpoint, because the focus is on Watson, and also how the framing device is set up around the plot. And the plot is just literally just they're trying to stop Moran and save Queen Victoria. Holmes is at odds with when he does show up, because again, Holmes doesn't really show up a lot in the story because he's off for like most of it doing his own thing. Holmes is at odds with Xena and Gabriel because Xena and Gabriel are determined to specifically kill Colonel Moran, while Holmes wants to arrest Moran and basically have him face justice for his crimes. Of course, since you know this, there's like an in-universe explanation why Xena and Gabriel are going so hard on killing Moran. It also makes sense from a character standpoint. They come from like ancient Greek, and their whole thing is like, we're not going to arrest you, we're just going to kill you. So, it makes sense from a character standpoint as well. And the plot is very, very technical about it. It's a very technically written story. Again, this is due to the fact that the story takes place from the perspective of Watson. Basically, the whole story is not only written from his perspective, it's written in his style. It's the same as all of Conan Doyle's books. It's very technical on how everything is processed, how everything is followed through, the framing device, everything about that is layered from the perspective of Watson. That includes the writing style. So I think from that, incorporating all those elements from the original Conan Doyle's source material into the story to kind of give it as much of an authentic feel as possible, I think is really well done. There's even moments where the story is actually censored, but again, it makes sense in the context of the story because Watson is specifically writing this story. It's not so much Phineas writing the story. It's Phineas writing a story that in universe is being written by Watson. So Watson is basically, so it's not so much Phineas censoring, it's Watson censoring it. And even then, he mostly just censors like the really, really bad curse words. And even like the crossouts, instead of like doing the line thing, he basically has the X's at the end. That's how Conan Doyle did crossing out, which again is a really good detail. It really shows the level of depth and homage that the author wanted to do to honor the original Sherlock Holmes stories. And I know I'm more talking about the technical details, but again, there's not much with the overarching plot to go on outside of talking about the technical details. Again, which are really well done, but the plot is just, they're just trying to find and stop Colonel Moran, and just some minor clashes on like how the differing ideologies come actually trying to deal with him. I do think it's well done. I'm not a fan of how it's finished. They just kind of blow him up randomly. Well, Moran gets shot by like a Smith and Wesson, but you can make the assumption that he probably survived and all that. There is lots of action. There is some mystery to like how he's like figuring out how to find Moran, what specifically his plans are, and how to incorporate them. But mostly, this is just like Watson, Xena, and Gabriel talking. And this is where I had to say I didn't click. I didn't like the characters for some reason. Because, okay, if you take his, like, okay, how well and how close they are to their canon selves? They are pretty much one for one. And the best way to start with that is Watson himself. Watson is a very dry, kind of uninteresting character. He's uninteresting by design. He's meant to be uninteresting in order to better contrast and better bounce off the very eccentric and very more egocentric Sherlock Holmes. That's basically how Watson is. A large portion of the story, since Holmes is not around, Watson's usually communicating with Gabriel and Xena, who don't really bounce off Watson as well as Holmes does. Like, the best parts of these stories is when Watson and Holmes actually interact with each other because they simply bounce off each other so well. The same thing with Xena and Gabriel. They're very much characters that by themselves can't really work as well as unless they're with the other. So it's like, okay, so Watson by himself, it's just a very dry and dull story because Watson doesn't have the person he's meant to be with and meant to bounce off of there for the most part, which leads to his flaws being more shown of just being a nothing character. Same thing with Xena and Gabriel, despite the fact they interact more often. Like I said, it's mostly Xena and Gabriel and Watson. This one's kind of more shot in the foot by the fact that the framing device is from Watson's point of view. So there's a lot. So Xena and Gabriel don't work as well as they should have, at least from my opinion. Again, if you're wondering how faithful they are to their sorry, I burped there. How close they are to their canon counterparts, they are pretty much one for one. They are perfect representations of their characters. Xena is basically like this bloodthirsty warrior woman who's like, "Can I pay? Can I hit him? No. Can I hit him? No." Gabriel is basically like this pseudo intellectual that kind of bounces off Xena, which again is fine, but kind of focusing on Watson kind of messes it all up because of the whole technical aspects. They're basically like two conjoining writing style because Xena and Gabriel benefit more from very brusque and brief writing, while Holmes and Watson more benefit from the writing style shown in this story, this very technical writing that plays to their strengths. And so Xena and Gabriel, at least to me, don't feel they just feel very off over the course of the story. Like they do, like yeah, I get that the author is using them very well. I even like the nice touch of they're so out of touch and like they're completely like okay. Ares brings them like 1,000 years in the future. It's like you need to play along with this, and they just do such a poor job at it. But like Watson and Holmes are like so confused, like specifically what they're saying. It's like, And at the end, when Ares actually teleports them home after, like immediately after they defeat Moran, it's like they literally go up to like the train after they blow it up. Ares like, I didn't see you. He grabs them, he takes them home. It's like, oh, and like both wonder, it's like, what did we just see? It's like I would never know. And even like Ridge, like the author of Alan Quartermain, says like there's some things you're better off not knowing. He's like, I just like I think honestly Xena and Gabriel are like the weakest parts of the story because they just clash so badly with this. I mean, I guess that's the point, but I think it's just a personal thing because again, if you look at the story objectively, it's very well written. I have nothing bad to say about this story from an objective point of view because it's just that good. I, I just didn't like it for some reason, and I still haven't figured out why. If we're looking from a character standpoint, they're all really well done. Even Ares' brief appearances throughout the story are really well done. Morin's well done. Queen, like Markham, who's basically like this low life boxer type, is like, he speaks like a very heavy uh, English accent. And even like going to the grammar, incorporating all the spelling. Like when a character has an accent, the character has an accent. So it's very authentic to the whole thing. Pace wise, the story is very slow paced, but it works because this is a Sherlock Holmes stories. They tend to be slower paced, and trying to keep the slower pace intact was at least having to keep in mind being authentic to the original source material. I think it's fine. I do think the pacing in some parts, like there's like the awkward part because I really wish the story maybe like half of the story was taking place from Gabriel's point of view. I think that might have helped with some pacing things, but that would have put the story at odds with what the author was trying to do. So I don't know if that's the worst idea. Uh, do I recommend this story? I would recommend this story. I do think a lot of people will probably find enjoyment. I will leave an asterisk behind this because a lot of people are more associated with more modern takes on Holmes and Watson, so they're probably not used to having the stories take place specifically from Watson's point of view. So the asterisk is just for like quick warning. If you get into the story, just know you're the story is gonna take place from Watson's point of view, and a lot of people are just gonna get off put by that. It's like, oh, that's not from Sherlock Holmes' point of view. No, it's from Watson's point of view. So just that little asterisk, just at least to forewarn if you're gonna get into this, you know what you're getting into. Favorite part? Probably the bar fight. I just think it's just chaotic all the hilarious way. It was like, oh, they're just talking to like this random informant. It's like, hey, yo, we need your help to find more. And man, and then this huge hulking guy is like, hey, yo, I told you not to be in here anymore. It's like, I'm a longshoreman, so I don't. What, so please so you leave. And then as he's about to talk and square up, he's like some random hobo just jumped on him. He's like, all right, there we go. And then it's just 2 chapters of just them just duking and beating each other up. It's kind of funny. It's entertaining. It's over the top, but it's also very British. And like, it's like, oh, hey, Johnny God. You can even have like a part where Sherlock has someone under his arm and he's just constantly hitting the guy in the head. It's like, oh, Watson, how you doing? Just it's very British. I like it. If there's anything I would change, again, and you can make an argument for having half the story take place from Gabrielle's point of view. I'm also not a fan of the whole ambiguous ending, like, oh, the possibility that the story may have just randomly been a dream. Like, huh? I mean, I guess that makes sense because Aries might have just wiped their memory out. And I like the fact that it is ambiguous enough that there is a possibility with like this one would have been like actually happened and Aries just wiped their memories. So I wouldn't say I wouldn't get rid of it. Uh, Gabriel writing like half the story, I think that might have been better. Like to see like Watson and the British culture from a different sort of my standpoint, like a more very like a very butch version of writing, which is what Gabriel is. She's not a very eloquent writer from what I remember. Or if you had to do the Xena Gabriel thing, why not just do reincarnation? Reincarnation is a thing in the Xena TV show. Sure, a lot of people don't like the episodes, but reincarnation does exist. So I don't know why the author didn't just go, oh, it's just like not like late 18th, 19th century Xena and Gabriel, like Britishfied versions of Xena and Gabriel. That would have been interesting. Hmm. Yeah, that would have been actually interesting. Also, I would suggest this is a crossover. Don't say I do not consider. No. Oh, they're not based off the original stories. I don't know. Because in fact, there's this right here, which is based off the original Conan Doyle stories. So maybe just I don't know, making this a crossover would work. So this has been Dark Symphony 777. I will see you next time, and cut.